Background: my brother-in-law, 37 male, used to be married to Ellie, 33 female, and is now married to Julie, 40 female. Ellie and brother-in-law have 2 children together, 7 female and 7 female. They divorced when the girls were toddlers. They split as he had been cheating on her with Julie. Early into the relationship, Ellie got injured in a car accident and had life-changing injuries from it. And this is when brother-in-law started to cheat on her, as it was the only way he had to cope with the situation. He went to his brother, husband, 40 male, for advice and had asked him to not tell Ellie. Husband told me, and we made the decision to tell Ellie and introduce her into one of husband's friends who is a lawyer so that she would not be blindsided. Father-in-law, 70 male, had cheated on their late mother numerous times, and it ended badly, which is why husband wanted to tell Ellie. Husband and I have since remained very close with Ellie. Ellie is my closest friend. She's like the sister I never had. Husband, myself, the kids, and father-in-law are the only family she has, as she lost her mom when she was a kid and her dad just before she started university. Our children are very close in age, so attend school together. We live on the same street. We see each other every day. We even go on holiday together. The issue: we have recently come back from holiday. Ellie and I took all 5 children, my 3 and her 2, husband had to work, to France for a weekend. She posted a couple of pictures from the trip on Instagram or Facebook. Not sure, don't use it myself. Well, Julie saw the pictures and absolutely exploded. Not sure how Julie has seen it, as Ellie has both brother-in-law and Julie blocked on everything. She's angry that we still see Ellie and spend time with her. She was already upset that we live on the same street as Ellie. Julie doesn't want Ellie to be a part of our lives, as she is the new wife and Ellie is the old wife. Julie has been demanding that we all cut Ellie out of the family. Brother-in-law has spoken to Ellie and I and is demanding that we cut out Ellie, especially after we broke his trust and told Ellie that he was cheating and wanted to divorce her. Husband told brother-in-law that we would not be cutting Ellie out, as she's done nothing wrong, except thinking at one point that he was a kind and decent person. Brother-in-law is threatening to cut us out of his life as well if we don't cut out Ellie as well. Brother-in-law and Ellie now only communicate through lawyers after brother-in-law harassed her, after he found out she had started dating one of husband's friends, James, 39 male, who he was also friendly with. James had asked me to introduce him to Ellie at husband's birthday party. They'd been together for a year when brother-in-law found out, and he only found out because Ellie had introduced her partner to the girls. The girls had been telling him about their trip to the zoo with Ellie, and that her partner had been there as well. The girls loved James. Brother-in-law had almost ruined her only relationship since the divorce, as she was about to break up with James because she just wanted brother-in-law to leave her alone. Brother-in-law didn't like that the girls accepted James while they still haven't warmed to Julie. I don't want to cut Ellie out. I don't want her or the girls to be isolated because Julie and brother-in-law are absolute jerks. Husband has suggested to ask Ellie not to post any pictures of us in them for now, and maybe lock down her account so Julie can't find her online. But I don't feel that it is fair to ask Ellie to censor herself. Any advice? Husband doesn't want to cut out brother-in-law completely because they're brothers, but at the same time, he knows that what brother-in-law and Julie are asking isn't acceptable. Yeah, I, 43 female, have some advice as a second wife and stepmom, as well as a divorcee who is still friends with some of my ex-in-laws. Ignore Julie and your brother-in-law. They can die mad about it. If either of them had the best interest of the kids prioritized, they'd be happy to see pics of the kids enjoying vacay. It's no wonder the kids haven't warmed up to Julie if she's consistently trying to pretend like their mother doesn't exist. You and your husband and Ellie are behaving like adults. Your brother-in-law, and especially Julie, are acting like middle schoolers. And maybe that's unkind to middle schoolers, but the whole allegiance and whatnot is so immature. And Ellie should lock down her socials, because this kind of drama can be limited to a point, which is also in the best interest of the kids. What a mess. Brother-in-law is wrong. You don't take orders from him about who you can and can't be friends with. You should tell him straight up that he's not going to push you around like that, and you aren't ending a friendship for him, and he should grow up. Here's the thing. Your husband doesn't need to cut brother-in-law or Julie off. Just continue to do what you're doing. They can't tell you who to be friends with. If they wish to cut you off, then so be it. It's never a good idea to negotiate with idiots. Background info. I'm 19 female. I have a sister, 22, and brothers, 20 and 18. 2003. My grandpa died. Dad buys a family plot. He tells mom it's for grandpa, grandma, and maybe themselves. November 2015. Dad gets sick and dies within a few weeks. Mom buries dad in the plot with grandpa. Shortly after, we noticed we're being followed. My sister sees this dude in his car with a camera while walking out of the grocery store. We tell mom, and she doesn't know what to make of it, but tells us not to go out alone. Weeks later, mom gets a call from one of dad's sisters who accuses mom of poisoning dad. Mom is actually concerned by the allegations. She provides the death certificate and the medical records. My siblings and me have no contact with them from this point on. 2019. I get a call from my sister, who tells me to look at my texts. She had sent me pictures of a private Facebook group. From 2015 onward, there are photos of us around town, Mom's new husband, our house, cars, Zillow photos of our house that we sold, as well as Dad's death certificate and medical records Mom had provided years ago, room and board and tuition costs of my brother and sister's schools, speculative cost breakdowns of Mom's wedding and honeymoon, the price and tax history of our new house. Essentially, it was like all this stuff showing how Mom spent money. They were accusing her of poisoning Dad for his insurance money. Their theory was that Dad was poisoned by my stepdad. This page was an accumulation of evidence to prove they did it. I then find out that they had spent the whole time harassing Mom about the insurance money. They believe Dad's will stated they were entitled to 1/3 of Dad's money and assets. Present time. Grandma dies. Mom calls and asks me what I thought about allowing Grandma to be buried with Dad and paying for the funeral. I say no. Mom says okay. Later on a group call, Sister and Mom think we should cover the cost and allow her to be buried. She explains how she got a call about how they couldn't afford to pay for the funeral, and it was Dad's wishes to have her be buried there. The rest of us disagree and don't care about their lack of money or Dad's wishes. Outnumbered, Mom said okay, but clearly disagreed with the decision. Since then, we have been harassed by their calls. I haven't taken any, but my brother accidentally answered. My aunt began speaking like she was reading a script, saying how our mother would be honored if she could be buried next to our father and our brother. I got pissed and was like, how about you throw your mother into the ducking trash and leave our family alone? Mom says that I was rude and should have handled myself better. Am I the a-hole for doing that and for not caring about their inability to afford a funeral, Dad's wishes? I guess my grandma is in the fridge, still awaiting her final resting place. Edit. My grandma was not the creator of the group, but a member. She had made comments at my dad's funeral that she found it interesting that my dad died so quickly. My dad had been supporting my grandma before his death. My mom stopped sending money afterwards. I think she had some involvement with encouraging her kids to come after my mom. Besides the private investigator pics, all the information found on the private group was info already on the internet. My mom allowed us to decide what happens to the plot. Considering that she remarried, she did not feel like it was her place to determine what happened to the plot, as she would not be buried there anymore. My mom has a soft spot for everyone, but is also a pushover. In my opinion, she's being guilt-tripped into doing it. Mild yes the a-hole, but only for making things harder for your mom. She's the main recipient of the harassment. It would be better if you could answer questions about this situation, something like, Mom, my opinion is X, but I will support you in whatever you decide, instead of pressuring her to do things she disagrees with. Ditto for escalating with the relatives who are being horrible to her. Satisfying as it is, and as much as they deserve it, it's just going to make things harder for your mom. Not the a-hole. I think you ought to separate the two causes and decide what to do about Grandma and what to do about the family members that harassed you. If Grandma was not actively instigating, involved in the harassment, in my honest opinion, you should allow her to be buried in the family plot, as was the original intention and, presumably, your late dad's wishes. She was his mother, your granddad's wife, and your grandmother too. But, since you will be covering the cost and taking care of the family plot, this is where you can have it end for any family members that have been harassing you. You do not need to go an inch beyond what you are comfortable with, or legally forced to acknowledge. You do not need to involve them in the funeral arrangements. They do not get a say. You decide when and how. You don't have to care if it's convenient for them. You can leave the transfer of body to the funeral home of your choice. If you know where the body is, they do not need to be involved. If there is any gathering after the actual event, it's your choice whom to invite. My husband has been a mentor to my cousin for a number of years. It started when cousin became interested in music. Husband is an accomplished musician and the two of them bonded over the subject. When cousin graduated high school and decided to study music, my husband gifted him an expensive musical instrument that his father had gifted him as a teenager. It was very touching and tears were shed among the family. Cousin has a natural proclivity for the industry my husband works in, too. My husband arranged for his company to hire cousin casually while he studied. Cousin lives in another state, but husband arranged for him to work remotely, with flexible hours at graduate-level pay. Cousin had several complaints made about his brashness, arrogance, and rudeness. He has self-diagnosed with autism, so his rudeness was reprimanded, but overall he got away with it. The thing that annoyed me is that while he is acknowledged to be very good at his job, he often wrongly assumed seniority over his co-workers, all of which are graduates in the field which he has never studied. He traveled down for a month in June to spend time in the office, and one afternoon I took him shopping for video games and gave him some cash to help with transport, since he was without a car. Our shopping trip ended poorly though, with no video games purchased, when he called me white trash because I mentioned my love of handbags. He abruptly resigned by email 2 weeks ago. His wording was a copy-paste of the briefest resignation letter template on Google. He ignored all my husband's calls to find out what was going on. I had a strange feeling and asked my husband to cut off his access from the system to see what he'd been up to. Turns out, he'd been savagely disrespectful about my husband to other employees in the Hangouts, made borderline R comments about another employee's accent, and generally awful comments about other employees' competence. When we cut his access off, he tried and failed to hack into the owner's login and another employee's. We discovered he solicited an ex-employee for contract work in July and has been double jobbing for that person, who we were already aware was trying to go into direct competition with my husband's company. Finally, he answered the phone and offhandedly apologized to my husband for not picking up his calls. He lied and said he hadn't spoken to the ex-employee for over a year. My husband is refusing to take legal action, saying it would be awful to drag a wee boy down to our state to face court, and that he can't stomach doing that to a family member. He'll swear at him on the phone, but he won't sue the little jerk. The company owner is shocked and hurt. He had been a dear friend for years and a mentor to my husband, but I sense that there is a distance growing between them since this incident. When I visit the office, I can feel tension that wasn't there before. I'm expecting to see Cousin's branch of the family at Christmas, and frankly, I don't think I'll be able to keep my temper. The little creep has hurt us and possibly damaged my husband's career. I need advice on what to do, given that my husband is so infuriatingly intractable about legal action, and I am sick with rage. Should I call Cousin's parents? Send a vitriolic email to Cousin? I am very close to Cousin's older brother, and we are having dinner tomorrow night, but so far I have not wanted to involve him. Am I wrong? This hurt, and anger is really eating me up. A wee boy. This guy is 20, not 12. If he was old enough to work for the company, he's old enough to experience some adult consequences. I have no idea why your husband is infantilizing him like this, but it needs to stop. As for you, don't conceal this from your family. You don't have to go into all the gory details, but you can absolutely say that there is tension with Cousin at the moment, because he behaved very poorly in his role at husband's company, and you're both extremely disappointed in him. Try not to totally lose it and start screaming, but do make it known. People acting distant or awkward about pretending everything is fine tend to drive families nuts, and revealing the bare bones of what's going on should lessen the temptation to start throwing the mashed potatoes at Christmas. Perhaps you should have a chat with the owner. I'd imagine your husband doesn't want to rock the boat at the cost of his own relationship at work. Make it clear to the owner that you encourage whatever recourse he sees fit towards your cousin. This was never something either you or your husband imagined could happen, and would like to see things put right, or as right as possible. I sort of did this through my husband, who passed on something to the effect of, "We have Janine's full blessing to take him to court." The three of us also shared a car later that week. They were meeting a client, and I was headed to a library in the same direction, and I was able to spend an hour with them, which was actually a really special time together. I guess we have in common that this has hurt us all, and we were quiet together and managed a few laughs. I was able, I think, to demonstrate my contrition and shame for having brought this little mongrel to darken their door. It was very cathartic, but I was also deeply honored that the owner would seek and listen to my opinion like that. It really knocked me out and galvanized the goodwill I have for him personally. My husband has a deep affection for the guy, and now I see why. My daughter, 13, called me on Sunday night, crying, because while she was with me over the weekend, her mother packed up and stored all of her clothes. She left her with 6 white shirts, beige pants and shorts, and a dress. I called my ex to see what was going on, and she told me that her clothes were being removed indefinitely because she was picking on her stepsister, 14, and girls at school. I don't buy this picking on bit. My ex-wife told me that the school called her on Friday. When I talked to my daughter about it, she said she was defending herself. Some girl said nasty words to her, so she retaliated and really struck a nerve. I believe her, and do not think she should have gotten in trouble. My daughter is very into fashion, and I have bought her a great deal of clothing, tens of thousands of dollars. Her clothes are important to her self-expression. It will depress her to have them taken away. My ex did not tell me her actions because she knew that I would disapprove. She knew I would go buy more clothes for my daughter. She and her husband are struggling financially and are unable to provide the same things for her stepdaughter, and she is taking it out on our daughter. I told her she could give my daughter $15,000 and take her shopping. She can put the clothes back, or I will sue her for the full amount. Here it is Friday, and my daughter's clothing has still not been returned. I sent my wife a text saying that I will be filing paperwork. She posted our text exchange online. I am being attacked by family members and friends. Nobody seems to want to hear that I was defending my daughter. They all want to bring up my ex's financial situation, but nobody cares about the emotional well-being of my daughter, and I want her to understand that her father will back her up. Am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole. I get that your daughter is daddy's little girl, but you seem to be strangely blind to the idea that she might not be telling the truth. Have you called the school to get a neutral version of what's happened? If not, then why not? No 13-year-old needs $15,000 worth of clothes. You are creating a spoiled princess. Punishments are not meant to be fun. If removing the clothes didn't upset your daughter, it would not be a punishment. Jumping to lawyers before finding out the facts is daft. Find out the facts. Yes, the a-hole. For spoiling a kid so badly she gets depressed without access to a wardrobe worth more than most families' primary vehicle. And for taking her side without talking to her school. And for seeming to be totally uninvolved in your daughter's life, except to help ensure it goes in the same direction as yours. Straight to Buttholeville.